Hello, everyone. I'm 𝘱𝘳𝘦𝘴𝘦𝘡𝘕. I'm a rising senior here at Bowling Green State University, studying for my BFA in graphic design with a minor in marketing. And my original hometown is the small corn town of 𝘰𝘭𝘭𝘬, Ohio. So I am 𝘱𝘳𝘦𝘴𝘦𝘡𝑕, and I've had to provide proof of who I am every day to others and to myself. I am a biracial Native American woman. And all my life, I've been told and looked upon as a white person. I grew up in a white community lacking in diversity. And if you're told something enough, you may begin to believe it, even if it isn't true. Oh, you look white. You are white. You don't dress Native American. I think you're lying. You don't look Native enough. Oh, you just want to feel special and included, don't you? I was told these types of comments in elementary and middle school, and every time I'd bring up my heritage. I didn't speak about much of who I was in high school due to these mocking comments. Even now while I'm in college, these words come back and slap me across the face. You aren't Native enough. But I am enough. My mother is Caucasian and my father is full blood. He's from the Cherokee and Creek tribes. He left my family when I was around the age of 6, and he took that side of the culture with him. I didn't accept the word biracial. I didn't feel it applied to me. And due to the way I grew up, I completely ignored that other half of who I was. It wasn't until freshman year of college when I attended a multicultural class due to a scholarship I received. And someone came up to me and said, "You're the biracial Native American girl, right? It's nice to meet you." And at that moment, I almost furiously shook my head no. And then I stopped myself. I was shocked. I never let that side be a part of me, even though it always applied to me. I was ashamed of that. From that moment on, I was determined to learn more about that half of culture that I ignored most of my life. I researched, studied, and reached out to family members and started the process for my CIB, which means Certificate of Indian Blood. I was finally starting to be proud of the complete piece of who I was. But again, I always had to prove myself. Oh, you don't look Native enough. You don't dress Native enough. Your skin isn't dark enough. These constant statements are ones I've had to battle since I've started to proudly explain who I am. And it caused me to reflect to the community itself. Why do they have to prove their very existence? To prove that they're human. Indigenous invisibility is a very overwhelming matter with little to no education on the subject. Native Americans are one of the least representative communities in the USA today. 1.7 of Native Americans occupy the total US population, and according to the US Department of Health and Human Services, 1.6 million American Indians and Alaska Natives are under the age of 18, yet they carry the weighted percentile of 28.7% of the total racial group. With lower percentage rates in education and higher percentage rates in increased diseases like a stroke or a heart attack, Indigenous people are more likely to die at younger ages due to these diseases. And yet they still don't have insurance or proper medical care to deal with these situations. And yet the statistics are against them, but they push on. For example, in the summer of 2019, I took a trip to Bowling Green State University Alternative Breaks. For 2 weeks, we traveled around the Navajo Nation, witnessing firsthand what life was like for these residents. The 𝘵𝘬𝘦, also known as the Navajo people, had to travel miles for clean water, and they had to truck it back to their families for use. They lived in smaller homes with several family members and don't have immediate facilities for emergencies, like hospitals, police, or fire stations. This is their everyday life. Yet they're not ashamed, instead proud of what they owned and what have they created with their own hands. 𝘵𝘬𝘦 people are proud of who they are and their community, helping one another fetch water, mend fences, and gather livestock, trading and bartering goods, and helping their neighbors in hard times. They think in the mindset of a collective, their community, not the individual. Life is more difficult for them in comparison to the United States. And this was all pre-COVID. Now, it's worse than imaginable. Native people aren't even seen as human. If you think that's a crazy statement, the Seattle Indian Health Board asked for COVID-19 relief, and they were sent body bags in response. At the Navajo Nation, residents are testing positive for the coronavirus 9 times higher than the entire state of Arizona. Yet they still don't have running water or indoor plumbing in most homes. 30% of homes on the reservation do not even have access to clean or reliable water. Putting that into perspective, 30% is 175,000 people. 30%. The pandemic pushed the country to realize the internal systematic problems we have here. For Natives, the beginning of that isn't even basic human rights. They're continuing to struggle at a more rapid rate for food, water, and shelter, all things we take for granted. We see the statistics against us in the Native American culture, a declining wane in our culture and visibility. But it's time to rise above the statistics. You may think, well, this isn't my blood. This isn't a part of me. Why does it matter? What if you could help remember generations of knowledge? What if you could help preserve valuable memories? It does start with you. It matters by putting yourself in perspective, putting yourself in someone else's shoes to feel their life, their voice, their emotion. It's frustrating having to explain why you should care for others, but that's the perspective in the world we live in. We must take responsibility for our own actions and care for others to hopefully spread kindness and compassion and to see those reflections tumble like dominoes into the community. In some formation, it is the responsibility of all. A current example is Native American mascots, more specifically, the Washington Redskins. Not only is that mascot offensive to some Native communities, but the actions taken towards having the Redskins as a mascot dehumanizes them. Imagine walking into a football game named directly after you, or a community you're a part of, shouting, "Murder Caucasian people," or "Scalp Jimmy," or "John." You'd probably feel attacked, berated, and uncomfortable. These mascot names also generalize a whole community. When using a mascot, you can utilize that mascot for various activities. So, for example, Bowling Green State University, where I go, the BGSU college is called the Falcons. And we have freshman events called SOAR, like soaring and flying high like a falcon. College sweethearts are called Falcon Flames, the food court is called the Nest, and so on. See, when you use a term like Indians or Redskins, the possibility and becoming generalized names creates a bias and huge stereotypes, like all Native Americans are Plains Indians who dress in deerskin, live in teepees, and call whooping chants. And that's far from the truth. Events and actions like these have a rolling effect on the outer community without us even realizing its negative impact. It is the cumulative responsibility to recognize these issues and to tell people of our similar communities to educate themselves and stop that. And I firmly believe if we conquer these problems together, we can help the stigma against invisibility of Indigenous people in the United States. Now, I'm still accepting myself for who I am. I'm not directly inside the Native community, and I'm still working on my tribal membership with the Cherokee Nation. But that doesn't stop me from believing in who I am, being proud of who I am. I've taken my passions of being a graphic designer and my internal morals to continue to speak up and be an activist for the Indigenous community in my own forms, researching, informing myself on important issues, taking trips to learn more about the culture responsibly, and educating and bringing awareness to others. An example by doing this is this very speech, to instill a source of compassion and empathy, to encourage others to open themselves to opportunities of acceptance and awareness of Native Americans and crushing the stigma. Another example is Midstory, aligning with a nonprofit that has good morals and ambitions for a greater community perspective. I'm utilizing my time here to research and publish articles about Indigenous peoples, issues and topics, and creating graphics for articles and social media pieces that can help educate new viewers and possibly change their perspective on things. I'm taking these steps with others who believe and have a fiery passion within themselves for the greater good as well, whether that be nonprofits, grassroots organizations, clubs, whatever. By taking these steps, one voice can become a greater shout. And I believe every single person listening here today can do the same. We all have some type of passion within ourselves. If we take that passion and move together to acceptance, to be kind, to be open and aware, issues like Indigenous invisibility can be conquered. If acceptance was honored, maybe there will be a little biracial child who will grow up being proud of where they came from, not ashamed. Coming together and making a change so maybe, just maybe, you don't have to justify the color of your skin or who you are, to help and care and love one another together. Thank you.